Alright, so season 1 of HBO's The Last of Us has finally come to a close. So with that, it is time to give my non-spoiler review. The Last of Us is created and written for television by Craig Mazin, who created the show Chernobyl for HBO. The show is also created/written for television by Neil Druckmann, who created The Last of Us games. If you're not familiar with the plot of this show, let me give you the synopsis. 20 years after an infection spreads and nearly wipes out all of civilization, a hardened survivor is tasked with smuggling a 14-year-old girl across the post-apocalyptic United States. Along the way, they cross paths with other survivors, the good and the bad ones, but where there are survivors, there are usually infected. And just so I'm not giving too much away, I'm only going to mention the two main actors in this show, which are Pedro Pascal as Joel Miller and Bella Ramsey as Ellie Williams. It's important I start this review off by saying this. I have not played much of the games. I played a little bit of the first one, and that's about it. That being said, I do have context from elsewhere other than the game. I watched breakdown videos of this TV show. I also watched reactions from people who have played the game, such as The Real Rejects. So I do have context as to what happened, how accurate this show is, also what may or may not happen in the future. I'll say it right now, I regret that I know what may or may not happen in the future. I looked a little too far ahead. I spoiled it for myself, but yeah, don't do that. I'll say this right now, this is a great show, so if you haven't played the games and you don't know about the story, I'd recommend going in as blind as possible. This review is fine, I will not be getting too specific with anything, but I would recommend not looking too deep into anything. And for those of you who have played the games and have not watched the show yet, don't expect this show to be a shot-for-shot remake of the games. There are times where it can almost be shot-for-shot, but there are a lot of times where they very much do their own thing. And that could be a complaint for some of you out there who have played the games and haven't watched the show yet, is that the show isn't as accurate to the games as maybe it should be. But I think there's a very big difference between telling a story in a game and telling a story for TV. So you're spending all that time as the character, spending time with the other characters in the game, getting attached to them. It's easy to look at the show and be upset almost that you can't make the character do what you want them to do because you don't have a controller in your hands playing as the character in the show.
Oh! He's asleep! He's boring.
I understand some of the criticisms, specifically the criticisms for the show is that Joel, the character, is not as tough and violent as he is in the games. The show really doesn't stay like that for long. You get those moments for a reason because it builds up to those moments. And in a game, you could go around and take out as many people as you want just in one session. Whereas in a show, you have to tell a story. You have to have a narrative. It can't all just be bang, bang, shoot 'em up, let's kill everybody in the lobby. So yeah, sorry about that tangent there, but for anybody complaining about that, there are reasons behind it. If you stopped watching the show because you were complaining about that, continue with the rest of the show before you keep talking.
Cut out the jibber jabber. Don't be babbling like a fool. Say what you got to say. That's all. Then shut your dang pie hole.
Another kind of dumb criticism out there is that Bella Ramsey doesn't look enough like Ellie Williams from the game. Did you really expect these people to look exactly like the people in the game? Personally, I didn't, and when I heard about the casting for Bella Ramsey, I was like, oh my god, that is perfect. I thought she looked like the character. I only had the context of her in Game of Thrones, of course, but I had faith. Then you get the people just straight up bullying her for the way that she looks. Just enough of that, people, enough. Enjoy the show because it's a great show. Stop criticizing it because it's not as accurate to the games as you want it to be. Now that I got that tangent out of the way, I can talk about how much I love this show. It's HBO, so obviously the production value is as high as it can be. I thought Chernobyl's production value was crazy. This takes it to another level. The way they're able to both practically and digitally make these landscapes look so realistic is nothing short of mind-blowing. I feel like we're so desensitized to digital and practical effects at this point that we don't actually appreciate what we're seeing on screen. Some of the effects that I've seen in this show, some of the best effects I've ever seen in any show, even some movies. Along with the effects, the writing in the show is also incredible. Of course, it might be word for word from the game sometimes, but a lot of the time they go in different story directions than they do from the game, and some of those episodes are the best episodes of the show. Also, I feel like I should circle back to the actors in here. Of course, Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey are fantastic in here. I think they have great chemistry on screen and off screen, honestly, from what I've seen in interviews. While they might not always be exactly like how the characters are in the game, they still very much embody those characters. Along with that, the other cast that I won't mention, just for the sake of spoilers for the people that have played the game, I don't want to give away all the people that are going to be in this first season. The other actors in the show are also fantastic. Some of them in there actually that are from the game, some of them playing different characters. One of them in particular that I know of playing the same character in the show as she does in the game. I guess I do want to say this, Nick Offerman is in the show. That might be a actor that might pull people in and make them want to watch. I'm not going to say what character he plays, but I'm sure a lot of people who have played the game knows exactly what character he is playing. His character is one of my favorites in the show, if not my favorite. And now circling back to the writing, the storylines in this show will both warm and break your heart. They'll make you feel scared, make you feel sick, maybe even feel angry. And a lot of that comes with the people that they come across, the survivors. The thing I love about this show is that it's not as much about the infected, it's more about the humans. But alright, it's time to stop gushing about this show and get into a couple negatives that I have. Going back to what I was saying about the infected, you really don't get as much as you should in the show. About the halfway point through the season, you get one episode where you just get a lot of infected, and after that point, you don't get as much going forward. I would have liked if it would have been spread out a little bit more, but at the end of the day, the reason why they did that is because Joel and Ellie are going across the US, and as they get further away from civilization, the less likely it is that there are infected out there. The second criticism I have is the pacing. There's a few time jumps in the show, one of which I didn't really see much of a need for. It sped the story up quickly, which was good for the story overall, getting to a certain point a little bit quicker, but at the same time, I felt like we could have seen a lot of that story in between. Those are really the only criticisms I have about the show. I think it's a great show. Is it one of my favorite shows of all time? No, not quite yet. Maybe with the next season or two or however many they do, it will become my favorite show. But as of right now, I think this first season is great. I love it. I had a great time with it. One last thing I want to touch on before I get into my ranking is the infected. There's something else I want to talk about with the infected here that you may or may not already know. I won't get super deep into it because the show talks about it a little bit, and there's also some really cool Nat Geo videos that I'd recommend checking out. But basically, the reality aspect of it is it's called cordyceps. It's a real-life fungi that mainly infects small animals such as, rats, mice, and also insects. So I think that's one thing this show really has going for it, is that it is somewhat based in reality. Don't worry, there's not a huge chance of it actually infecting humans and turning us into the infected like in the show, but still, what if? But with that terrifying fun fact, let's get into my ranking. When it comes to Last of Us Season 1 on HBO Max, I'm going to go ahead and give this a premium subscription. If it wasn't already obvious, this show is an absolute hit. It is an absolute must-watch, and I'd definitely say it's worth the price of an HBO Max subscription. But have you watched Season 1 of The Last of Us? Tell me down in the comments below, what did you think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you in the middle? Please no spoilers down in the comments below. Don't be that person. Along with that, have you played the games and watched the show? What did you think of it? Do you think it is better than the game? Do you think it's worse than the game? Do you think they're equal? And have you not seen the show? Are you planning on watching it anytime soon? Why or why not? Comment that down below as well. Really, any comments you have for me, I'd very much appreciate hearing from you. I respond to as much as I can. But do me a favor and leave a like on this video, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload, and I will see you in the next one.